And so to help us understand what opportunities there might be floating out there, we have Dr. Mary Alice Ball from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, who is Senior Program Officer there. We have Dr. Jan Cuny, who is a Program Officer at the National Science Foundation, and we have Kate Sorestad, who is a Program Officer at the Weinberg Foundation. And so,
Hi, can I start with an announcement? I just got this email on an Internet to K-12 video conferencing group today, so if anyone is interested in partnering high school class participating in a program designed to connect autistic and general education students via video conferencing, please see me and I'll give you the information. So I'm really excited to be at a diversity conference. And I thought I'd start off by saying, in my career and in my personal life, I found it's a good idea not to make assumptions. I, believe it or not, that some of you, I heard about the K-pop group before. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Korea and then a graduate student at Seoul National University. I lived in Gangnam. I know it as a place, not just a dance. And you know, my daughter is preparing, and my daughter, a two-mom kid, is preparing college entrance essays. And she turned to me the other day and was reading me a draft. And it was like, what do you think of this, Mom? Our Mayflower Society ancestors would be totally shocked to see our family around the Thanksgiving table. Because, yes, I am the stereotypical white middle-aged librarian, female librarian. But when my family gathers, we are white, black, Indian, Mexican, Haitian, Nigerian. We are Christian, we are Muslim, we are Zoroastrian. Don't make assumptions. I mean, I have people make racist comments to me all the time, thinking I'll go, yeah, you know, whatever. And I have to speak up and say, gosh, that actually would be like my sister-in-law that you're talking about. She's not the nanny. You know, those are her children. So for me to have that in my personal life, and then in my professional life, be able to fund diversity programs, it's a wonderful thing. It feels great. And how do I make this work? Yes. So I work for the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and I'm just curious, how many of you have been funded either as a project director or a dean, or maybe a student who's getting a scholarship? Could you raise your hand? Okay, thanks. So I won't go into a whole lot of detail. We are, you know, one of the smallest federal agencies around with under 70 people. We do a lot of grant-making, convenings, research, publications, and our goal is to serve as the voice for the nation's 123,000 libraries, 17,500 museums. We give away more than $20 million a year. When you hear Jan talk about National Science Foundation, you'll learn what a pittance that is. But it has a significant impact. We have discretionary or competitive grant programs on the museum side. These are just a few these are the grant programs that we have. And this year, for the first time, both the Museums for America and the National Leadership Grants on the museum side, not on the library side, have changed their categories of funding to be more in sync with our new strategic plan. They are learning experiences, community anchors. John Berteau, you know that term, don't you? He might have invented that term, at least in the library profession. And collection stewardship. On the library side, we give away around $4 million, roughly $4 million in Native American, Native Hawaiian grants, our National Leadership Grants, and the Laura Bush 21st Century librarian program, which I'm the program officer for, give away roughly $12.5 million a year each. And Sparks Ignition, that's all about small, thanks Becca, it's all about small, innovative, sort of Kickstarter, if you will, type grants, gives away $300,000. Just briefly, the National Leadership Grants are designed to really fund projects that will have a strategic impact and that will expand the boundaries of the profession, either by services that they're doing or programs. They really, key evaluation criteria for them is innovation, that we want to demonstrate that we're pushing practice forward into new areas. We don't require collaboration in any of our grants, but we do use it as an evaluation criteria. We really encourage you to be collaborative and to work with one another. Our grants are $50,000 to $500,000. Right now we have Campaign for Grade Level Reading. That does have a $250,000 cap. We really want to push the money around more. We have smaller collaborative planning grants up to $50,000. And we have a national forum grant that's really to have a convening of experts, and that we would fund up to $100,000. And I was talking to Mark and Imani before about the idea of trying to bring people together. And, whether it's we fund Knowledge River, Spectrum Scholars, LAMP, ARL, Diversity, we fund all sorts of things, not just IDP. Well, maybe you could get your heads together and come to us with a proposal, and we can put it through our peer review process. National Leadership Grants has 3 different categories of funding: research, demonstration project, and advancing digital resources. On the Laura Bush 21st Century librarian side of the program, it's all about education and recruitment of the next generation of professionals. We support continuing education. We want to enhance the capacity of library school programs and school library media programs. So if there's a new area, say digital data curation, we fund that, e-science types of things, diversity programs. We want to develop library faculty leaders, and we also support research. MEGA as one of our grants, Early Career Development Grant for tenure track, untenured faculty. And the amounts are the same as they were for NLG. The types of categories we have: master's programs, doctoral programs, again, the programs to build institutional capacity in library schools, early career development grants, and continuing education. I thought I'd give you a few examples of grants we've made to promote diversity, ones that you might not be as well aware of. On the museum side, $150,000 roughly was given to the Arab Community Center in Dearborn, Michigan. And they created an educational outreach program to work with high schools and college students in a multi-state area, all about understanding Arabs, Arab Americans, and Islam. We gave, and we've done multiple grants to Syracuse University, Ruth Small, at Syracuse to do Project Enable. And this particular grant is to help educators and librarians better serve preschool students with disabilities. They're bringing people in from all over the country and teaching them about disability law, assistive technology, universal design. We gave a National Leadership Grant of $41,000. This was a planning grant to the Colorado State Library. You can see their partners. Again, who was it? I forget. Someone earlier was talking about the idea, I think, that Jim Fish promotes, of bringing in more partners, more collaboration. And they have gotten together to develop a program, Project SPELL, that's all about early literacy for low-income families. We have a two-tier peer review process that we put things through. It's very, very rigorous. We give comments to both successful and unsuccessful applicants. And the peer review committees meet, score things, comment, program officers put that together, prepare recommendations for our director, and it is the director who ultimately has the final responsibility and the final say-so. But she is clearly influenced by what review panelists say. So, I'm speaking now, sorry, wait a few years, library school students, but to professionals, some of you know who you are already our reviewers, but we're always looking for new reviewers. So there's a link here. It's an anonymous process. We use it in all of our programs, and we would welcome you applying to be a peer reviewer. My contact information. I also have a handout. I wasn't sure what to expect with the audience, exactly who would be here. So. And some of you, even if you aren't practicing librarians, you may be less familiar with applying for a grant. And so I would really encourage you, I put together just two-sided, one-page handout. They're back at the registration desk. You can see them right there. And, it's basically basics for beginners in grant making, How do you get started with a problem? All the way in to the end result of sending your thank you, to say thank you for giving me $250,000 to whatever one of our funding agencies is here. So help yourself. And if you've got questions, feel free to talk to me later.
Excuse me for talking with my mouth full. I have a cough drop because I have quite a bad cough. I've just come back from leave where I spent 2.5 months working with 20-year-olds who nearly drove me into the ground, I tell you. They apparently don't need sleep or food. So anyway, I want to talk about broadening participation at the National Science Foundation, and I'll talk about it mostly in the programs that I run. I'm in the Computer Science Directorate, and I run their programs on broadening participation in education. I also come from a very diverse family, and so was delighted when I got the opportunity to come to NSF and start the Broadening Participation in Computing program a number of years ago. We look at NSF in the, especially in computer science, but across all of NSF, the underrepresented groups are women, African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, and persons with disabilities. And this is especially true in computing, where women are very underrepresented. Some of the other fields don't include women in their definition. But this is not a small niche group, right? This is 70% of the population. So it's a huge group, and in computer science, we pretty much missed that group entirely. So it was clear that NSF needed to do something. I had been working on gender issues for a long time, and then I got the opportunity to come and work across all of the 5 groups and to start a program. So I was very excited about that. NSF has a broad portfolio on broadening participation, and they have a number of things that they do. It's one of the few federal agencies that actually has broadening participation in their mission statement and in their charter. The first thing we do is broader impact. So every grant that we give, no matter what the topic, most of our grants are in scientific and engineering research. No matter what the grant is, we ask what the broader impacts for society are. And one of the main broader impacts that we look for is broadening participation. Unfortunately, every grant doesn't have to address broadening participation. I'd actually like to change that, but as it stands right now, it doesn't have to, but we certainly like it if they do. So there's a thread that runs across all programs that includes broadening participation. We also have broadening participation focused programs. So the program that I started, Broadening Participation in Computing, its whole goal is to broaden participation. There are other programs like that across NSF. There's LSAMP, which is the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minorities program, which looks at undergraduates and provides university programs that provide support for undergraduate students, minority students. There's a similar program for graduate students called AGAP. And this is usually an alliance of many universities that get together and try and figure out how to better support minority students across all disciplines. There's CREST, which looks at support for research at minority serving institutions. So those are kind of general programs. The one that I started was BPC, and BPC had several different components. One component was, we felt that unlike other NSF programs, that you needed to have a sustained effort, and that we were more interested in efforts that were large regions or national efforts than just local universities, because it's easy to fund a project at a local university and have it be very successful, but when it's over, you don't really know what you learned. It's over, it's just over, right? What we really wanted was to build up to something, so we tried to form big alliances, kind of modeled on the AGEP alliances that I think were successful. So we have BPC alliances, and I'm going to talk a minute about what happened to the BPC program, tragically, but the BPC alliances still exist. And they do a whole lot of things. So we have one of our biggest alliances is the National Center for Women in Information Technology. If you have any issues about technology and gender, NCWIT is a perfect place to go look. They have tons and tons of resources. Mostly they're a resource for the community, but they also have started some programs. And one that I really, really like is called Aspirations in Computing. So it's a high school award for women who have done something really cool in computing. And it has a lot of advantages. First of all, it recognizes women. So other women see these women getting awards. Males, high school students, see these women getting awards. Their parents see them getting awards. They have local winners and then regional winners. They have conferences of these regional winners, and then they have national winners. They have about 37 national winners each year. I'm not sure that 37 is a fixed number, but this year there were 37 for sure. They don't have one single winner. And then these winners get a lot of recognition. So they get taken, they've been to the White House Science Fair, they've been to meetings at the White House, they've been to science fairs on the mall, they've been on radio interviews, they get a lot of recognition. The cool thing about this program that I really like is that the person who runs it, Ruth Farmer, used to be a big person in the Girl Scouts. And so she sees winning this award not as the culmination of something, but as the beginning of something. It's kind of the entree into a society. So she keeps all these girls together and active, builds a social community out of them, they're all online, and she stays with them through college. So it's a really good program, I think. And there's lots of these winners each year. All the regional winners and the local winners are invited to join this community. I think it's a really cool program. So getting back to this, we have other BPC alliances. We have one called Access Computing that works with persons with disabilities, kind of at a national level. We have another one that works with Hispanic students. We have 8 in all alliances that still exist. And the goal for alliances, they're funded at about a level of between $750,000 and $1 million, $750,000 and $1 million a year. So they're pretty big efforts. And the goal was that we would sustain them over some period of time. So our hope is that they will be sustained for at least 10 years. So NSF has these BPC focus programs. It also has BPC emphasis programs. Across all of NSF, there are about 40 programs in these two categories. Some are local to a particular directorate, like computer science, and then some are across all of the disciplines. The GRF, Graduate Research Fellowship Program, falls into this category because we use that program to entice graduate students to apply, to entice minority students to apply, and hopefully get awards that cover their graduate program. The one that I run is called Computing Education for the 21st Century. So after BPC had been going for a while, when I first got there I was told, you have to stay at the undergraduate level because we're a research directorate and that's where we work. but very soon it became clear that the community was submitting more and more proposals that included K-12, and finally they were submitting mostly K-12 proposals. So it was mostly the computing community was speaking and saying, well, the problem is at K-12. So we started looking at our education programs, which were now in K-12, and our broadening participation programs that did a lot of engagement in K-12. And it became clear that these programs shouldn't be separated. So following some research that Eric Jolly did with a number of other people on what makes a STEM program successful, they needed three components. They needed engagement, you had to get the kids interested. They needed capacity building, you actually had to teach them something, not just entertain them, and kind of build their self-identity in whatever discipline you were looking at. And then finally continuity. You had to put them on some path forward that they could see. They had to have a next step. They had to see kind of what they were aiming for. So our broadening participation programs, many of the smaller ones, not the alliances, but the smaller ones that we ran, didn't really have that characteristic. They were mostly engagement. They didn't really teach the kids anything in particular. The kids liked it, but I'm not sure it went very far. Likewise, our computing education programs were developing great education. But if we develop great education for the same 30% that we're already got, we haven't really accomplished anything either. So our goal was to unite these programs into one that would look both at broadening participation and at education and would link those together. And so we've done that. We've had several different varieties of ways we've done that. We're trying to make that, I'm not sure we're exactly at the success level right now, but that these two communities would talk to each other all the time, would submit joint grants, and so I think that aspect has worked really well. If we look at, excuse me, if we look at computing education, it's really easy to get kids interested in technology, even at a really young age. We have such cool toys and stuff to play with, but it's very hard to get them to go on. The number of kids who are majoring in computer science has dropped by about 70% since the year 2000. We have very low numbers. And I think part of that is because they don't really see it in school. You know, it's quite surprising, but in the last 20 years, the number of kids who take computer science has gone down, the percentage of kids. It's down now around 19%. So only 19% of our students even have the opportunity to take a computer science class in high school, which I think is a mistake. We teach kids how to use Office products and how to use PowerPoint and stuff, but you know, it's not enough to be a user of technology. You really have to understand the fundamentals of technology, at least at some level, so that you can understand when you have a problem, what part of it can be addressed computationally, how you would even talk to programmers to have them do something for you, what stuff off the shelf you could take to adapt, how you would adapt it. So we're not saying that everybody has to be a software engineer, but I think computer science is a very basic, fundamental part of an education now, and all students should have that. So we have a major effort called the CS10K effort. We have funded two big projects to develop curriculum, one with the College Board to develop a new CSAP test, and one with some people in LA to develop a new kind of pre-AP test or a pre-AP course. And now that we have this curriculum, our goal is to get 10,000 teachers well prepared to teach that in 10,000 schools by 2016, which is a pretty substantial goal. If you think about training teachers, we have very few people in our schools right now who are computer scientists, and so it's going to be a big lift to get 10,000 really well prepared teachers by 2016. We also have an effort, this is the kind of thing that we do that's informal education, so the CS10K project is obviously all in schools, but .diva is a website that we funded WGBH to do. So WGBH looked at they did a marketing study for quite a while on what kinds of messages appeal to girls in the ages 13 to 17. Right now we go into schools and we send computer scientists into school and they say to the kids, oh, you know, if you want to major in computer science, you better study hard, you better learn calculus, it's really tough. You know, doctors go in and talk to the kids and say, come save the world. They don't say residency is really hard, you know. So we have to change the message that kids get around computer science. And so they have this website, .diva. It's currently out of funding, which is kind of sad because it hasn't changed much recently, but I expect that that'll change really soon. and we'll get it back up and running and getting more content on it. But it contains really interesting messages, so you might want to go to it and just see the kind of messaging that girls like. You know, what they really like is that computer science empowers you no matter what you want to do. So computing, the title of a lot of it's kind of washed out there, but a lot of it is kind of what's your passion. No matter what field you're interested in, computing really empowers you to do something cool. And they have lots of examples of, things you could do in many areas that girls might be interested in, and they have many cool things, cool pictures of, similar peer groups who have done really cool things in computing. NSF itself has started something called Bits and Bytes, which we send to high school teachers, computer science teachers, every week, every 2 weeks. And it features some really new, cool, jazzy, kind of state-of-the-art research and tries to excite kids about computing science research. So those are the programs, the kinds of programs that we run. We do fund broadening participation programs, specifically within CE21. We also fund educational research, so how do kids learn? Another program that some of you might be interested in is the Cyber Learning Program, and that's how do kids learn any science, not just computer science, but any science with the help of technology. So it really looks at how technology can fundamentally change the way kids learn. There are lots of other programs at NSF in the EHR Directorate. That's the Education Directorate. There's an informal science program there. And so what I wanted to briefly say was how you go about finding these programs and getting awards from NSF. So the way to find them is to go look at the home page. There's an awards tab. Start scanning through that and look for awards that were made on the kind of topics that interest you, and look at what programs they came from. So that's one way to kind of get an idea of what we fund in areas that you care about. Another way to find out what we fund in areas you care about is to talk to program officers. Many of you are very close here to NSF. You can go down. Program officers love to talk to people about their program. So if you're going to do it by email, I would send them a short, 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph synopsis of the kind of work you do, and ask if you can come talk to them. If they're the right person, they'll say sure, and if they're not the right person, they'll forward you to the right person. There might be more than one program that you're interested in, but the first step is to identify the programs. You can also just cold call someone and say, do you run a program in this? And they'll say, oh no, I don't, but somebody else does, and you can find the programs that you're interested in. Once you've found the program, you should talk to the program officers. It's incredibly important to do that. I would tell anyone who's writing a grant to NSF to talk to your program officer early and often about your proposal. That's kind of their job. And most of us really enjoy talking to people anyway. The other thing you should do is get some proposals from your colleagues that they've submitted to NSF and read them, and then read the reviews that they got. And find out, see kind of what things people were looking for. You can have your own review panels, right? Get a bunch of people who are kind of at the same stage of your career, have them sit down and read some proposals and sit around and talk about them and see the kinds of things that people pick out. The biggest thing that you can do to get to get a good NSF proposal together is to be on an NSF panel. So the way you get on a panel is you pick a program. You can't get on a panel if you're submitting to the same deadline. Right, but pick a program that you're not submitting to now, but you would like to submit to in the future. Find out when its deadline is, and about 3 weeks before that deadline, write to the program officer and say you would like to be a reviewer and include your CV. Right, so 3 weeks before the proposals are due, program officers are just beginning to panic about how they're going to find all these reviewers. Right, they would not no one will run a panel of all brand new reviewers. But the cool thing about panels for brand new reviewers is that you will meet all of the more seasoned reviewers on a panel. And we do like to bring in new people all the time. So that's the #1 way to learn how to write a proposal. Proposals for every agency are different. So if none of these suggestions apply to NIH, you should go talk to them about how to do that, talk to their program officers. And even within NSF, there are different kinds of programs. So there are programs that are across all of NSF, like the GRF program or the career program. Career is a little bit different too, because career starts out in a discipline but then becomes across all of NSF. But cyber learning, for example, is across all of NSF. So when you're submitting to that, your audience is going to be a very broad audience. When you're submitting to a little research program, your audience will be experts in that research area. So you have to really understand the panel that you want to be on a panel that's as close to the program that you're going to apply to. And if you have any other suggestions, NSF does a lot of talking to people, a lot of workshops on how to write proposals. I have slides on how to write proposals that I'd be happy to send to anybody. So I'd encourage you to look around and find things that meet whatever topic it is that you're interested in. Thank you.
Well, Becca's getting it all set up to go. I'll introduce myself again. My name's Kate Sorestad. I'm with the Weinberg Foundation. We're based in Pikesville, which is Baltimore County, and we work primarily in funding in Baltimore City. I've had the privilege for the last year to be working on the Baltimore Library project. I love this project, so I'll try to be calm when I talk about it, but I get very excited about it, and I'm very happy to fill you in on other details. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview so we can get to your questions as well. So a little bit of background. The Weinberg Foundation, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, since we're not around this area as much, our sole purpose is to provide grants to nonprofits who are doing direct service with poor and vulnerable populations. We have 5 main funding areas and then 2 separate programs. Older adults is the majority of our funding. That's on a national scale. We also work in workforce development, basic human needs, disabilities, education. We do general community support, which is often working in affordable housing and disadvantaged communities. And we have our Maryland Small Grants program, which is the other hat I wear, in addition to libraries, which works with Maryland organizations whose budgets are under $5 million and offers grants of $100,000 over 2 years. The foundation provides $100 million in grants a year, so we are the second largest in Maryland. Our focus, like I said, is Baltimore. We also do Northeast Pennsylvania and Israel. The Northeast Pennsylvania surprises people, but we stick to the hometowns of Harry Weinberg, and he lived there. We have a very small staff. There's 20 of us, so we're a close family. There's a program director in each of the areas, and then amazing support staff. We also are so small in staff size that we have the opportunity to meet weekly with our trustees and our president in order to make grant decisions. So we try to be quick. Our Maryland Small Grants is a 50-day turnaround from application to hopefully check is in the mail. And our other due diligences happen as quick as possible. Baltimore City Schools is who our partner is with the Baltimore Library Project. These are some of the stats that we were working with when we initiated this project. And the one that we were focusing on most, the reason we began this initiative, is because Baltimore City's grade level reading rates have improved, but they still have a long ways to go. And our president and some of the key staff people at the foundation really wanted to find a way to transform the school so that kids would be excited about literacy and the rates would improve. And we thought the best way to do that was the libraries. So the library project it actually started less than a year ago, which is unbelievable. We opened our first 3 in September of this year. So to say it's been a whirlwind is the biggest understatement for my last 10 months. But we had started this project because we're able to leverage QZAB funds, which are federal funds designated by Baltimore City for libraries. So we've been able to leverage the funds. We provide 30% of the capital, and then we work with 32 other partners in order to transform these libraries. This is all the partners. So one of my major jobs is to make everybody work together, which isn't hard because people are so passionate about literacy rates in Baltimore City and helping these kids that it's been a snowball effect to get everybody on board. I want to show you some pictures just so you can really understand the transformation that we've done. And I also have 2 quick videos that just, again, outline the process. So like I said, this was less than a year ago. We all got together for the first time. This project as a whole, we've been approved by our trustees to provide up to 12 library renovations. We have $5 million, and we are doing it over 4 years. So we opened our first 3 in September of this year. We've already started working on our next 3 that will open in the summer or at the end of the summer. And then the process just keeps going. And we really hope, and I say we have 12 libraries, we hope this is a legacy. And so this is our first 12 libraries, and we want to go on and on and on. So this is Moravia Park. It was our first school. As you can see, it's a pretty typical looking library, but 10 months after we were there, it turned into this. So again, the pictures probably don't do it justice on the PowerPoint, so I'm happy to fill you in and show you more. We were able to work with an amazing architect who works with a lot of the Baltimore City QZAB projects, and amazing design team. Great project managers. We actually finished on time and on budget, which is amazing. August 15th was our construction deadline, and sure enough, they gave us the keys the day before, so it was awesome. Each library has a similar brand, but we've personalized each space so it fits the needs of the school. We're in K to 8 is what we'll consider for the additional funding. This school is actually, it's a 2 buildings on this campus. It goes K to 5, but in the middle of our project planning, this building switched from K to 2, grade 2. So you can see everything's a lot shorter in this building than the other buildings. But we have a central area. We've incorporated all the requirements of city schools and state standards. There's a extended set on our pedal table. It looks like a big tree. And we have, as you can see, really, really crazy graphic designs throughout the space, as well as welcome to the library written in 50 languages. We've incorporated the Raven throughout with just quotes from that. You can see kids from all around the world are featured on the top column. We also were in Southwest Baltimore Charter School. This school, working with the librarian to weed her collection was the hardest part about this school, because they had never had books, and then they inherited multiple collections, but it transformed. We knocked down walls, and this became this. So it's actually L-shaped. It's huge. We have networking stations in all the libraries that feature 5 laptops and then a large screen that they can all work together. Hedges that can be moved around. We purchased new books for the schools. So I think for Southwest Baltimore, we wanted each school to have a solid collection of 7,500 books. So we purchased around 4,000 for some of the spaces, and we also did a community book drive. This is Thomas Johnson. There's no outside windows, but we were able to just use lights and great different features to make it feel so warm and welcoming. On September 12th, we had a grand opening. We did all 3 schools simultaneously, which was insane, but we like to have a good time, so it was fun. And if you have a second, I can show 2 of the videos, though I don't know how to get them going. Thank you. These are just 2 of the videos that we featured during the grand opening that give you an opportunity to see really what the spaces meant to the schools. Our focus was honestly to just create inspirational, magical spaces, and because we had such amazing partners, we were able to do that. They're quick videos.
I like to read really because I get to learn new stuff, and I don't have to sit around waiting for something exciting to happen, because I can be pulled into a new adventure. You get to be different characters, and you get to see how they feel. So it's really fun to do.
The reason I like to read is to step up my level.
In fiction, you just advance of how creative you are, but when you read nonfiction, you just advance your education.
It's very exciting, the whole thought of a new library and new things in the library.
From demolition to today has really been done probably just over 2 months. And that is remarkable.
I kind of want to see what's inside of there. Like, it could be like new books.
Everybody's been looking forward to this since the first day we were told that we were going to get the QZAP grant, and when we were told that the Weinberg Foundation was supporting this wonderful project. The students were so excited. They knew that they were going to get a new library, but I know that they couldn't comprehend how wonderful this library was going to be. I know that I couldn't.
I'm hearing that it's big, huge, and exciting.
As this project really began to gain momentum and gain steam, the dream of the Weinberg Foundation and the vision that everybody had for this library was beyond anything that I think I had ever imagined.
And I just can't wait to see it.
Just to be able to see the kids' faces is just going to be so much joy.
And they will be blown away when they see it. It's above and beyond any of our expectations.
And the next video, we gave a few kids this, at the very end of the summer, a sneak peek. The school got to pick their strongest library supporters, and they got to see the space before anybody else. What's crazy is the space didn't even have the furniture in it yet, but the kids didn't care, because just seeing the transformed space, they were already wanting to take out the books, which they were very disappointed when we told them they couldn't for another month.
3, 2, 1.
I think that is just awesome and cool, and a lot of kids can just have a lot of space to read books.
Look at all these American books.
It's absolutely beautiful. And there's so many workspaces. There are books and books and books. They will want to be here. They will want to touch books. They will want to pull things off. They will want to be in this environment.
It's awesome. Well, we found some Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and we just love it. It's so much better than the old library.
When I saw the finished project, I was in amazement. And this is beyond what I could imagine that this library was going to become.
The old library, you kind of stayed in reality when you were reading, but with the new one, you kind of feel comfortable enough to get lost in the books.
I think both children and teachers will be beating the door down to come. Children to come to check out books for independent reading, teachers to bring their classes. We have technology in the library. This is awesome.
When I walked up and I saw this, I was blown away. This is more than I ever imagined that it would be. It's mind-blowing. Students that were non-readers are going to want to learn how to read. Our parents are going to be able to come in and really be able to sit down with their students and open books and read.
No, I want to look at this page.
I was like totally amazed. It was like very beautiful in here, so bright and colorful and open. It's a lot of my favorite color in here too. Green. I love green. I think it's awesome. It's beautiful. We were saying how welcoming it is. It feels very warm and welcoming in here.
So I think that's good. It's engaging for kids. You know, it makes it a place they want to be.
It brought tears to my eyes. I started crying as soon as, because you can tell as soon as you walk in, it's a centerpiece for the school, and it's just beautiful.
I think this means we care about you. You deserve this. You're in a public school building, and you deserve this just like any kid in the county, any kid in a private school. And look at this. This is a space that everybody deserves to be in, and everybody deserves to have access to.
So that's our project. Those are the first 3 schools. When we started this project, to say we were building the engine while we were flying the plane was definitely an understatement. So with those partners that I talked about, the 32, we really got it done together, and it was amazing. I couldn't have asked for more, and we're very excited to start again with more knowledge, more partners, and the other things that are in the spaces, since you couldn't quite see them in this, we were able to, through our different partnerships, there's new e-readers in all the spaces. Like I said, there's more than 15,000 books between the 3 that were purchased. We also were able to send 3 books home with each student for their take-home collection to build their home library. We have classroom collections that were started through Baltimore Reads. And my favorite part of all of this, I mean, I love the beauty of the project, I love the inspiration of the space, but we've also, through the vision of the leaders of our foundation, we're really focused on providing well-equipped spaces. So we've also been able to fund a library clerk position to assist the librarian in the space for 4 years, and provided professional development funds above and beyond what they get from their school, so that the librarians can attend conferences and go to trainings and do service learning that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. We also are able to offer different partnerships through Food Bank, Parks and People, and the list goes on and on. So we're working on different literacy programs and just bringing as many opportunities to these schools as we can. So if you want to talk about it or see more pictures, I have tons. This is the first page of our website that also walks you through the pictures. And we're just in the process of getting the renderings done for our next 3 schools, so you'll be able to see those as well. So thank you.
I think that we have some time for questions as well. If anybody has, and I just heard a question from somebody, which was, did the I guess for Ms. Sorestad, is do the libraries in these schools have certified school librarians?
Yes. So in order to get be considered for the additional funding the Weinberg Foundation provides, they have to have a full-time librarian on staff. Since we've made that rule, Baltimore City Schools has made that a requirement for any schools applying.
Oh.
Any of the schools that are applying for the QZAP funds, they also have to have a full-time librarian. And because we're in a year ahead of when the actual work is, when we've awarded it, they have to have the librarian on staff that full year going in. So it's very exciting. And we're also working with Burke to do evaluation to see the impact that the libraries have had on the overall community in the school.
So the Weinberg Foundation is located in Baltimore, right?
It's located in Baltimore, yes, and these projects are all Baltimore so far.
So only through Baltimore. That's my question, because Prince County Public Library School System they're not eligible to put a application for this.
Under the Baltimore Library Project, they're not. That's our focus at the moment, and that came about the QZAB funding that's in place, because that's a requirement for our foundation. For any grant that we provide, we can only do 30% of a capital project. So these libraries cost about $1 million when all the partnerships are said and done, and we're able to come in with about a third of that. And then the other partners top it off. So we're in East Baltimore Community School as well, which is also in Baltimore. That's not a QZAB recipient, but they have a combination of that other 70% of funding. So as long as there's the private dollars, we're able to work in it, but we haven't expanded past Baltimore. Yes.
So there's a possibility you might expand to other county systems?
We're always looking, but for now, I think I only have energy for 12 more in Baltimore. But the foundation is, I mean, we're passionate about literacy, and Baltimore's our area, but with Maryland small grants, we are able to expand, so we're always open and always looking.
I have my own question. So I'm actually going into school librarianship, and I hope to be in a school in January. There's obviously not enough time for me to understand what the community needs there, what the optimal space would be, and I am thrilled to hear that you might branch out to other counties. Is this a program that, if it continues to be successful and obviously prestigious for the foundation, that, for example, 3 to 5 years from now down the road, I might be able to apply for funds like that? So that's one part of the question. The other part of the question is, how closely is the librarian involved in the actual planning of the space?
In terms of applying for funding, Baltimore City coordinates all of that through the QZAB dollars, so they actually bring the schools to us, and then we selected from that list of who was receiving the QZAB. QZAB goes to high school as well, but we just had a K-8 focus for this project, not for all of our projects. And we had the requirement to need a full-time librarian, so that did limit who was available or eligible. So yes, stay tuned in 3 to 5 years to see where you can apply. Because like I said, we really hope that projects like this are the legacy, and that there's many more to come, but we're focused now on what we can do with the CUES app. And really, even learning about that was such a fluke. I mean, such a testament to collaboration and just what a few key meetings does. We had no idea there was any such funding available, and it's been accessed by 53 inner city schools in Baltimore, so it's an amazing opportunity. Your second question, the librarians being involved. Yes, they get lots of emails from me all the time. I probably drive them nuts, but we have a great team, and so the original design stemmed from one-on-one meetings with librarians, as well as working with the specialists in Baltimore City to know what was required. Our architects have done a lot of these projects with the schools even before we came in, and so they were aware of the standards that needed to be met. We also did focus groups with the kids, which is where a lot of the ideas for the imagination stations came in, which are honestly crazy. They look much better in person than they do when I was looking at them on a little sheet, but they incorporate every crazy idea from flying cows to landmarks around the state. So it's pretty great. And then we've been able to, since we worked with the librarians so closely this year, we've been able to already go in and be like, okay, what didn't work, what did work, what are you missing, and use that for the ones going forward. I mean, it's almost that they were really guinea pigs, and we really were building things as we went, but they love the space so much that they're excited to show us going forward what we need to do. So it's been great. And it's been little things like we didn't have, there's a smart board, and the one librarian's like, could we have like a shelf to put the laptop? We're that involved in the weeds of it, and so we listen.
I just have to say one more time, thank you so much for paying attention to school libraries and realizing that they are a critical point for literacy, learning, and developing identities of children. So please, just thank you so much.
It's really been our team and the vision of our president and the trustees to support that vision. It's an amazing project.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Shannon, and I work in a school occasionally. I'm from Towson University, and I work in an oral history project that pairs students at an inner city school in Baltimore with seniors in the neighborhood, and they do interviews. But they haven't had a librarian for years, and they have a renovated space, and it's very nice. But the children don't use the books. They go to the computers that that have very limited they play a couple games like during library time, or they play a craft, or they do a craft with beads or something. And I've asked them every year, like, what's your favorite subject, math and science, which is great for NSF. But but in terms of literacy, they really hate reading. And I mean, I think it's directly linked to the fact that they don't have a librarian or someone to really inspire. I mean, their teacher that I work with is fantastic, but it's just consistently so what could I tell the principal about what he can do? Because they got this renovated space years ago, but they've never been able to quite commit. They have a part-time librarian that I've never met over 3 years.
Well, a lot just is in the hands of the principals, so I don't know the logistics and the ins and outs of their budget. They are amazing and are doing a lot with very little. And so it has been the principals that we are partnered with, I really have to give them credit for committing to the full-time librarian. And we don't want these spaces to be, we believe in investments. And so we want these spaces to be an investment for the school, and we want it to be something that's used and frequented. So they've signed on for a lot with us, because we are paying for the library clerk for 4 years, and then we want them to continue that after it, and we want them to maintain the space, and we're happy to help with all of the things that we can. We really want them to be
people that look at your application, not just peers and colleagues. Have them look at it. Give it to a mentor. Give it to your boss, and get comments on it, and revise.
Yeah, I guess I would like to second that. NSF funds, depends on the program. My program funds about 11% of the proposals that we get, which means we get a lot of good proposals that we cannot get. It also means that a lot of people get really discouraging news, and if you just quit, then you're out of the game. But if you resubmit, a lot of the proposals that are resubmitted are much better proposals the second time around. Sometimes it takes 3 times around. But people who stay with it, who really read the comments that they get back, who improve their proposal, who talk to me about how they can improve it, those people have a much better chance coming back to get it. I was once reviewed a program at NSF before I got there, and I was shocked at how few women were getting awards. And I said, whoa, what is the story here? And then they showed me the percentage of women who were applying for awards, and it was about the same as the percentage who were getting it. So there wasn't any discrimination against women. And I said, well, there's lots more women in the field. Why aren't they applying? And they said, well, the history is that women apply once, they get rejected, and they never come back, right? Because they're upset by this rejection. Men apply once, they get rejected, and they think, well, that was a stupid program. They should have funded me. I'll do it again, right? So you just have to, you have to be tough about these rejections and understand that even really good stuff gets rejected. We have excellent as our highest rating, and this last time I turned down 2 proposals that had gotten straight excellence. Right? We just didn't have enough money, and they didn't fit my portfolio very well. So even though you have, even though it's hard to get funding, just stick with it, and I think you'll be a much better chance of success.
If I can add to that too, we use a scoring system for our initial technical review of 1 to 5. 5 being excellent, push it on to the overview committee, and 1 recommendation, do not fund. We have people that get so upset when they get a 2, and it's really, a 2 is great. They're not telling you this is a lousy idea, they're just telling you need to work harder on it and come back next year. So, look at comments, don't look at scores. Don't always try to make the numbers sync up with the comments, because people change or write their comments inconsistently. But yeah, persistence is good.
So I'm just curious, so if you have something that gets 5s all across the board, and you know that it doesn't fit your portfolio, do you refer to IMLS, and then IMLS is looking at, and it's talking to NSF in this age of open communication and sharing? Do you do that? Do you do that within your agencies, and then do you do that across agencies when you have something that's just really good?
We don't, but we have been known to tell tell an applicant, gosh, you should be taking this to NSF or NIH or some other agency. Don't come to us. Or we also work with folks that apply in the wrong category, but we don't. We can't say, oh, this is a great thing. You applied in the wrong category, and we're going to fund you. We'll say next year, come back and fill out the application correctly.
Right, NSF is huge. They have a ton of programs, and so it's hard for me to always even know what the right program is. So to the extent that I know programs, I tell people that they should apply to a different program. We're also able to co-fund things. So it's possible that I get a proposal that I really like, but it doesn't fit my program. I take it to someone whose program it does fit, and we can actually unlike it sounds like you could do, we can actually fund it out of that other program by just co-funding it with me. So we do a lot of that when we can, which doesn't mean that we're always perfect. It doesn't mean that I don't get a proposal and miss the fact that it would have been a perfect proposal in some program somewhere else. So that's kind of a responsibility of the applicant, but we do try wherever possible to kind of put things in the right place and make sure they get reviewed fairly and on the merits of the proposal. We very rarely cross agencies, though. I have so much trouble keeping track of this to know exactly what would apply to some other agency would be really difficult. Although I do know the general categories, so biomedical stuff is more likely to be NIH than us and stuff like that.
I have another question from me for Dr. Cuny, actually. I wanted to see if you had anything to say about the role of school librarians as being able to push computer science education in schools. You said, like, for example, in a particular school system, it really doesn't exist. But they have school librarians, and school librarians are often first adopters of different technology and technology literacies. And then I guess a follow-up would be for that, in that kind of a situation where you didn't have the funding to, for example, get formal training, what kind of resources would you might you recommend to school librarians so they could learn computer science skills and then be able to teach them to kids in the school library environment?
Well, there are lots of ways that you can teach kids really fun things which actually tie into libraries. So one of the things that I would recommend is this program called Scratch. I don't know how many people here use Scratch. It's a really nice animation system that kids in the 3rd and 4th grade can pick up really easily and lets them tell stories. And I think that would be actually a really good thing for a librarian to do. You can just go to the MIT Scratch site and download it, and it has enough instructions so that you can get started. The cool thing about Scratch is that you build an animation basically. It's kind of a drag and drop thing. It's pretty easy to come up with cute things. I've done it with 5th graders, and in an hour they were creating pretty sophisticated animations. And that's something that I think a librarian could learn how to do and really engage kids with the idea of writing stories or writing reviews of books or doing animations that go with some scene in a text that they've seen. And I think that's a really cool thing. The other thing about it that I really like is that when you're done, you press a button and it publishes it to a page on the web. And so there's a whole page of projects that kids have published. And you can go and you can download those projects too. So you can take one that you like and download it and modify it into doing something better or cooler, or use the characters from it, or kind of the idea of reusing software and building on other people's work. So I would think that would be a really nice fit for things to do in the library.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions, please join me in thanking our panelists so much.